The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Variety Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericavariety.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to the Shrink Wrap Forum with Dr. Linda Yniguez. If you're looking for a different point of view on a variety of topics, many of which you just won't hear in the conventional media, you've come to the right place. Now, let's dive into the stream. Here's Dr. Linda Yniguez.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Shrink Wrap Forum. As you know, here in the forum, we have the opportunity to explore all those topics that you just don't hear in the ordinary traditional media. And of course, our intention is to stimulate your curiosity, enlighten, educate, hopefully raise that consciousness, and of course, entertain. You are all encouraged to dive into the stream of the forum and offer your questions and thoughts by calling. Toll-free number is 866-472-5788. My voice is a little bit under the weather today, so bear with me here. That's 866-472-5788. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at the Shrink Wrap Forum, and of course on Facebook, and on demand on iTunes. You can get all of the past shows, podcasts, everything right there. And of course, the Voice America website and the page of the Shrink Wrap Forum. Okay, so we have a very interesting topic today. So I'm going to start with everyone in the forum with this question. What if I were to tell you that everything that you've ever been taught about the weather was a complete lie? That's right, a lie. Okay, now you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute. Now you have really lost it, Dr. Linda. Well, I don't know about that. Or maybe you're thinking, okay, I get it. It's one of these conspiracy ideas, right? You know, those people out there, they're always paranoid and fearful and coming up with these weird kind of thoughts about things. Well, now, without jumping to any conclusions, let's just consider this idea for a moment. The most of us have been taught early in our lives that weather patterns, as well as, the weather disasters such as hurricanes and droughts, tornadoes, are natural to the earth. And as you know, in California, we've been having this heat wave that I don't seem to recall being this bad in years past. And most of us don't even question these things or really bother to investigate the science or the physics behind what we're all told about the weather from our friendly and trusted meteorologist on the morning news, right? Okay, so let's consider this. How about walking out on a perfectly clear day and looking up at the sky only to notice this jet way up in the top spewing something from its tail? You ever wondered what that is? Okay, so some people would say perhaps it's just the exhaust trails, which are commonly seen from, jets in flight. However, these trails, while normally disappearing after a few seconds, they do something very different. These trails not only stay in the air for much longer a period of time, but also seem to expand outward, lingering in the sky for sometimes up to an hour or more. And has anyone ever noticed that these trails seem to form some sort of grid-like pattern in the sky, and that this seems to be more and more common these days? Now, I don't know about you, but I don't ever remember seeing anything like that when I was growing up. And just to be clear for everyone, I'm not talking about this typical global warming stuff that you hear about all the time. I'm talking about the odd changes in the weather that most of us have noticed and maybe on occasion have questioned. Okay, now here's something. Could these trails that we see in the sky be related to any of the changes in our weather? That's an interesting idea. If you could entertain that, then it would seem that deliberate weather modification could not only be a possibility, but a reality. Okay, so what's really going on with the changes in our weather? Or are we to believe that this is just the natural doing business as usual and nothing more? So my guest in the forum today makes the assertion that while most of us are told that the weather is a natural occurrence, science and physics actually prove quite the opposite. An activist and author of over a dozen books, including Weather, An Act of Man, and Toxic Skies, Cloud Seeding, Geoengineering, and Weather Modification, he has written about topics ranging from this topic of weather modification to the physics of electrical components. He has a certification in Cisco systems and was also the inventor of the dual input multi-WAN WAN router that allows businesses to use multiple links from 2 or more WAN sources for improved speed and reliability of their network infrastructure. Currently, his main focus is weather modification and air pollution activism, with the goal in mind to expose and end these highly destructive and deadly illegal weather modification programs that have wreaked havoc on our planet. His belief is summed up in this quote, and it's a quote: "As with fire, there is no smoke until someone applies the flame. As with clouds, there is a blue sky until someone decides to create pollution. Weather is man-made," unquote. So let's get him on and get your questions going. Welcome to the Shrink Wrap Forum today, Mr. Michael Fleming. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Linda?
Great. Good. I'm good. Okay. So we have so much to talk about, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So let's just start with, you take a pretty strong position, right, that our weather is man-made. And I imagine that you have come to this conclusion based on something, right?
Absolutely. According to physics, clouds cannot form naturally in the atmosphere. It takes cloud seeding to produce clouds, or, like you said, with the geoengineering, it's the same thing. If it takes up to 400% supersaturation in the atmosphere. So normally the atmosphere is from 2 to 8% saturated. That's like a 2 to 8% humidity. Mm-hmm. And as far as the contrails thing go, a lot of people call the geoengineering contrails from jet aircraft. Right. And that is, it's not possible to form a contrail from a jet engine. That is a huge thing that people try to disprove it with. But at negative 40 Celsius, which is way up high in the atmosphere, about 50,000 feet or above, a plane technically could form a condensation trail if it weren't using a combustion engine with kerosene. Mm. So most of the emissions that you'll see from the airplanes are cloud seeding, intentional weather modification. The geoengineering program has been going on since 2009. I know you mentioned when you were a kid you didn't see a lot of the same patterns in weather or the jet contrails.
Right. Right. But, I don't remember any time seeing this.
Exactly.
Maybe I didn't look up in this. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No.
I said maybe I didn't look up in the sky very often, but, one would think I'd notice it growing up,
No, you're right. They actually did this back in the 50s and 60s, too. It was nuclear weapons testing is what they called it back then. And I have no doubt that it's the same thing now. There's no excuse for what they're doing with the weather modification program. Weather modification has been going on since the 1840s in the United States anyway, where the government encouraged people to burn forests to create clouds and produce rainfall. And in the 1950s, that was the thing with the aircraft. They created a fake sulfur atmosphere on the lower stratosphere, and it was called nuclear weapons testing back then. Now they say it's for global warming, and I'm not a climate change denier. I'm not going to say that the climate isn't changing, but the thing is they are creating it. Climate change is man-made, and they are responsible for it.
Okay, now, most of us have been taught that clouds are just in the sky, right? They just are, right?
Exactly.
They just exist. But what you're saying is that they wouldn't exist if we weren't doing something.
Yes, exactly. Either by pollution, by burning something. If you Google, can clouds form naturally? There's a link that'll pop up from a physics site. And it'll say, yes, clouds can form. Cloud seeding can happen naturally when forests burn. Cloud condensation nuclei are required for a cloud to form. And cloud condensation nuclei consist of pollution. In the ocean, you will sometimes see like an ocean fog or an ocean mist from sea salt. That's another cloud condensation nuclei source. But it will never rise up to the supersaturation point to produce a cloud, even in the ocean, in the atmosphere. There's no chance of it happening naturally. They have a lot of different methods to do this, through ships, through forest burning. A volcano can actually produce a natural cloud. That is the only way that a natural cloud will ever be produced on Earth, is a volcanic eruption.
I see. So, the Earth just has a natural way of cleansing itself, and that would be one of them, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so then it would form the clouds and the condensation and then the rain, right? And it would wash everything away. So we have a general sort of rebalancing of the Earth happening all the time, right? But you're saying that this weather, that we're having such extreme cases of it, isn't our natural balancing of the Earth? It's really another purpose to it.
Yes.
And you talk about they. Who is the operative they?
A lot of people say they all the time, and that's the good part to get into. I will go into climate engineering Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. It is in a 2009 review study, Linton and Vaughan evaluated a range of geoengineering schemes from those that sequester CO2 from the atmosphere and decrease long-wave radiation trapping to those that decrease the Earth's receipt of short-wave radiation. So also in 2009, DARPA did this, DARPA. It's a defense project research, and I have no idea what they're doing in geoengineering, but they also research ways to kill people and stuff like that. So for the military, so I don't trust them with the weather modification program, definitely, especially considering what's been done to the globe's weather over the last few years with this.
Okay. And, does this have anything to do with the HARP program, the government's project HARP?
Yes, I did read an article a few years ago about the connection with HARP and geoengineering. And basically, one of these clouds, quote-unquote clouds, are required for every 4,000 square kilometers for the GPS satellite to operate.
Oh,
so
really?
Basically, the RFID systems would lose all of their power. They could not track anything on the planet.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's interesting. So they have to actually they definitely have to create these clouds then.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so let's get back to the they for a minute, because I imagine there's more than just these two guys that started this, right?
Absolutely. There's another group of people doing it, organizations on these three. I'm sure that there are also private organizations who have been contracted out to do it, but the main three that I see are, I'll go ahead and quote Wikipedia again. The National Academy of Sciences is running a 21-month project which will study how humans might influence weather patterns, assess dangers, and investigate possible national security implications of geoengineering attempts. The project will be funded by the CIA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and NASA.
Wow. Okay, so the intention behind this, right, is this biological weaponry? What is this? Learning how to stay the power of the world? What is the intention, really, ultimately?
For me, I mean, I hate to say it, but I'll be blunt about it. It's genocide. 40% of people die from air pollution. Sulfur dioxide is listed, even under the government authority, as a chemical terror agent. Stratospheric sulfate aerosols is geoengineering. So basically, they're spreading sulfur dioxide on the population. We've seen a major increase in autism and Alzheimer's, and they also use aluminum in that spray.
Well, I can't deny the increase in autism, that's for sure. And now something about cancer rates, would this have something to do with it?
Definitely. Aluminum, when it breaks down the system, sodium, I'm trying to think of the name of it. There's a fluorocarbon that's used to produce aluminum. It's used extensively in the production of aluminum. When it breaks down in the system, it produces fluoride. It lets fluoride go in the system. It kills all the bacteria in your system that's able to fight off cancer. Dr. Dean Burt once said that fluoride was the main cause of cancer. It was the fastest causing chemical of cancer.
I think I've read this once before, several years ago about fluoride, but I thought it was mostly about dulling the brain, not necessarily, killing all the bacteria. Wow. So what you're basically talking about then is population control.
That's what it looks like to me. And the weather control, I think that they are just having fun with it. It's like the best way I can compare it is to a child getting away with bashing a mailbox and enjoying it.
Wow.
That's the best way I can look at it.
Wow. So you would have to have a lot of people doing these kinds of things, like scientists and people who are entrusted to, actually help the planet with their knowledge. You are saying that we must have a lot of people doing this without conscience.
Exactly.
Then, right? And don't these people have children? Don't they have generations that need to, prosper and live, etc.?
Yeah, I'm sure you know this as a psychiatrist, but 4% of people have been, accused of being sociopaths in America. That's 12 million people with no conscience that are willing to do anything for money or for pleasure, whatever they want to do. And it's affecting the rest of us severely.
Wow. Okay. So you have a lot of knowledge about this, and they say those contrails, but some people call them chemtrails now, right?
Yes.
That white stuff that's floating in the air. Some of that has to do with, you say, sulfur dioxide, did you say?
Yes, sulfur dioxide is one of the main ingredients. Aluminum, strontium, barium is the sulfate, the main sulfate that they use. Manganese sulfate, iron sulfate. So with an iron overload, too, that is a major cause of cancer as well. I didn't mention that earlier.
Right. Now, if this were very toxic for all of us, it would just kill all of us, wouldn't it? But there are a lot of people who don't seem to be affected. At least they're healthy, correct? So is this just about population control for those who are immune system, compromised? Or how do you explain that?
That's a big portion of it. And the asthma patients will go quickly on this. When people have to breathe this in for their entire life, even for a few years, it's slow poisoning. It's not like somebody injecting someone with sulfur dioxide or, to kill them. Napoleon did the same thing during his Holocaust. He gassed the Haitians in the hulls of ships with sulfur dioxide. This is like creating the same ingredients that are used in cloud seeding and geoengineering are like creating a gas chamber over the entire Earth.
Wow, that's pretty scary, if you ask me. Very scary. Listen, we have a caller that I'd like to take this call from and see how you feel this. We have a caller from Los Angeles, Zoe. Zoe, are you there?
Hello.
You have a question for Mr. Fleming?
Yes. Yes, I was just listening to the show, and I was wondering, the doctor kind of went over this question as far as the end game to these people or these organizations that are actually doing this weather modification. What, in your words, would say the end game is? And I believe you said genocide, but also she was stating how these people have children too and families, and so if they have a genocide, what is really the purpose for humanity in their mind frame? As far as, they're going to genocide the earth, and then what? Who's going to be living here? Mutants? I mean, what is the point of that when all they live here on planet as well? And where are the conscious people in this? Is it just the people that aren't unconscious doing this with the power and the money? I mean, there must be a balance. Where there is dark, there is light. So it points to as if it's just happening inevitably, and we just can't do anything about it. But certainly that isn't the way. So I'm not sure if there is a question in there, Doctor, but if you could help me with this, I guess, what is the end game? Why would anybody who's a human want genocide to the planet?
Right. Yeah, you hear her point, right, Michael?
Yes, exactly. The end game, in my opinion, is transhumanism. What is released from the geoengineering spray is called smart dust. These are tiny computer particles. When we breathe these in our heads, they connect with the tissue in our brains. For them, I don't think that they mind doing it to themselves because they want transhumanism.
Transhumanism. Is that like artificial intelligence, or is that control over your brain, or what? What does that mean?
Transhumanism is basically creating a robot out of a human. You can inject people with particles such as an RFID chip. A lot of doctors are now getting the RFID chip injected into their hand. They can go into the building just by waving their hand against the reader. Controlled access. It can be programmed to a number. The person will then be identified by that number, and they will have access to certain places within the facility. But it has a lot of potential, and it's fallen into the wrong hands. DARPA researches this extensively on the transhumanism thing. There's an article on CNN, Smart Dust aims to monitor everything. That's a great one to check out about the end game.
Smart dust. That's something that I hadn't heard before, and they're already talking about this.
Yes, they've been researching it for a long time. And 2010 was when the UN warned against it. They warned against geoengineering with artificial. I'm sorry. Let me look at this real quick, and I'll go ahead and read it.
Yeah, I think. Well, there is a big movement in artificial intelligence. I know about that.
Yes, there's a great article. UN body urges caution on synthetic bacteria geoengineering.
Wow, that's kind of scary. That's really scary.
Real quick, so if I can interject, and then I'll hang up. But so if the end game is to make humans part machines, who will benefit from that? The top 1% will have machines working on Earth to keep them rich. I mean, again, I don't understand that.
That's a good question. Who does benefit in the end? I mean, if everyone is impacted, then they themselves are going to turn into half robot, right?
Well, it is a good question, but control, in my opinion, people love control over other people. When a person has all the money in the world, they have nothing left to do except to get power. And these people that fund this, such as Rockefeller, the CFR, Bill Gates, they have all the money that they could ever want. And now they go around killing people with vaccines, with geoengineering, and they want control over the population. And what better way than to put these smart dust chips in everyone's head and basically be able to control them, have them as slaves.
Wow. Okay, so you're really talking about this population becoming about master slave here, really. But the people at the top are also going to be impacted. So won't that compromise their ability to have power over everyone else? You know? They're human.
No, yeah, kind of. If they know what's going on, they can program their own numbers. And for us, you know, the free will people, if they can change that to do their bidding, so to speak, that's the easiest way to implement it, is by tricking people into thinking it's not real. Like, people have been arguing over the geoengineering thing for years now, ever since it started in 2009. And they want to keep us arguing over it. They want to keep us arguing against each other so that they can get away with what they're doing.
Wow.
Well,
okay.
One last question. So what do, with the conscious part of humanity, what do we do to fight back besides letting everybody know about it? And most people won't believe it anyway.
Okay, that's a really good question, Zoe, and I think I want to come back to that because that's a whole bigger can of worms I'd want to get into with Michael. So we're going to take a short break, and then I want you to come back with that again, will you? Stay on the line for us. We are in the Shrink Wrap Forum today. We're here with Michael Fleming. We're talking about weather modification, geoengineering. We're talking about some kind of provocative, scary stuff. So join us. The number is 866-472-5788. Join the forum today, and we'll be back.
Stimulating talk
gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
All the time. The #1 internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com.
Ready to chat about your favorite soap operas? The daytime discussion is here with Dan J. Kroll and Soap Central Live. For the past 15 years, Dan has been dishing and discussing on SoapCentral.com. And now he's taking the talk to the airwaves of the Voice America Variety Channel. You'll go behind the scenes with the biggest stars of daytime, along with guest commentary from the Soap Central columnists. And we'll take your questions and comments during our live show, Soap Central Live, every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific on Voice America Variety.
Voice America Network proudly presents The Catherine Zox Show for women, men, children, and families. Catherine magically combines her compassion, experience, and talent to bring listeners a show that's upbeat, informative, and yes, a little sassy. Tune in every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern to The Catherine Zox Show on the Voice America channel.
Streaming live. The leader in Internet talk radio. VoiceAmerica.com.
You are tuned in to the Shrink Wrap Forum. Dr. Linda Yniguez wants to hear your point of view. Call in now to 1-866-472-5788. That's 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to drlinders@theshrinkwrapforum@yahoo.com. Now, back to the Shrink Wrap Forum.
Okay, we're back, and we're talking with Michael Fleming, activist and author of one of the books, Toxic Skies, which I had a chance to read as chock full of information and data supporting his claims. This is one of those topics in the forum that is highly controversial, and call us and let's see what you have to say about it. So, Michael, we have Zoe on the line, and she had asked you a question that I think is a really important one. Zoe, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, could you ask Michael that question again?
See if I can remember. It was basically, with all this information that we're given and the awareness of the end game and the transformation of humanity to robots, where's the balance of the conscious individuals to halt this or stop this? Because it seems like it's some inevitable. They're just doing it, and there's nothing we can do about it short of talking about it, and then of course it won't be believed really. So you present a lot of data which is researchable, and people can find these things out. But we all know most of our populace is rather lethargic these days and doesn't really pursue what they don't get right on the TV or at their fingertips online. So what would you recommend with all your knowledge of this? How is it counteracted by conscious people on the planet to stop this progress? I mean, I'm not sure how to make that a question, but let's see.
No, I think you asked it. What do we do about it?
No, exactly. I know exactly how you feel and what you mean by that. What would have to happen is people would have to arrest these guys. It is a federal crime to do this, and it's an international crime. Geoengineering has been illegal for a long time. The UN banned it back in 2010, but the United States did not sign on. But regardless, if sulfur dioxide is a chemical terror agent, according to the United States government, and these guys are researching how to spread it on the population and have already done so for years, it's a crime punishable by up to death, 30 years to life in prison or death, and nobody will prosecute them. That's the problem.
I mean, if everyone knows this is going on, and the jets that are spewing this stuff I don't know whose jets they are, or if they're governmental, I don't know. They're unmarked.
Somebody's approving this. Somebody up there is approving it.
Yeah, right. Somebody at the top is approving something, right? They all know about it, right?
Yes.
So
ahead,
nobody's stopping it, so they must be, I think at some point in the book you would use the word treason.
Yes, definitely.
And so basically you're saying, yeah, this is sort of treason against us, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, Zoe, I don't know if you...
One last thing, if it is treason and you know this, are you not of the mindset to pursue this even more aggressively to get things done, or is what you're doing obviously does do some of that, but with your knowledge and awareness, would it not take you to spearhead that sort of campaign?
Personally, I have filed 5 lawsuits against geoengineering,
Wow.
And it has not done a bit of good. They were all dropped for jurisdiction or some reason that just did not make any sense. Jurisdiction is like saying you go to the federal court and they say, oh, well, it's not our problem. Even though it happens over their city, people below them in their city must breathe that stuff in. They all drop it for lack of jurisdiction. Back in 2010, though, when I filed the third lawsuit, the United Nations did put a ban on it for 193 nations. The United States, again, did not sign on to that. That's the unfortunate part. But back in 1980, the use of weather modification for illegal purposes, 1979, it was signed on by President Carter. After the Project Storm Fury, all that stuff happened to Cuba. Operation Mongoose, they went in, I may have actually mentioned the wrong name there, but during the Bay of Pigs, the cloud seeding was used over Cuba to basically ruin their crops. They tried to destroy their crops, their rice, and during the Bay of Pigs invasion, they had no air support. A lot of people died. It was a total disaster, and that was a direct result of the cloud seeding that was done. Back then it was done by the military, but now the UAVs, I know she mentioned earlier who's doing it, they're unmarked. You can't see them on radar. Most of it is done by drones. And I've talked to a scientist before who told me where they do it from. He said it was Dryden, east of LA in California. Dryden is where the drones fly from, and it's actually called Armstrong now, NASA's Armstrong Flight Research Center.
Wow. Is that doesn't happen to be up toward Vegas, does it?
It's a little bit west of Vegas, northwest of Vegas.
Oh.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you for your work, sir, and good luck to you in this campaign.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Dr. Linda. It's a great show. Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks for calling in. Michael, you're still on it, right? You're still pushing for something to change, I guess, right?
Yes, I still do activism, but I've pretty much given up with the lawsuits. I have a website up at stopchemicalterrorism.com where all the documents are laid out. I've got a few articles up about who's doing it, why they're doing it, and how to stop it. But nothing's been done yet, of course.
Right. Well, I imagine most people look at you rather strangely, right? Call you conspiracy theorists and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. Only 8% of people are aware of geoengineering. That's the problem. It's not that it's not, an official government test or anything. It's that people don't know what's going on.
Right. Well, we've been so distracted with other things, I imagine. I can see why. The whole idea is to distract anyway, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, and it's just interesting in terms of the whole conspiracy kind of label as well, is you have an interesting take on that whole word in general, don't you?
Definitely. The word conspiracy theory, or the term conspiracy theory, was coined by the CIA, and I can't think of the operation name, but it was back in the 40s or 50s. They came up with this term conspiracy theorist to discredit anyone who tried anything against them.
Right, and so people pick up on it, and now it's sort of discredited. I mean, this is a way to discredit you.
Yes.
Right, so here's my question to you, because I know that this has happened over, decades. I'm old enough to have seen this. How come you're still around? How come you haven't disappeared yet?
That's a good question.
And I know you know what I mean by that, right?
I know exactly what you mean. Over the last 4 years, since the third lawsuit, I have been harassed. My vehicles have been vandalized over a dozen times. I've had home break-ins. I've had a lot of stuff happen to me that I won't tell anyone about.
Right.
And it's more of a torture and discrediting thing. If they can get away with doing this and discredit you, that's the main thing. If I died, people would know exactly why it happened.
Oh, I see. So they got to keep you around.
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's sort of like David Icke. I'm sure you're aware of his work.
Yes.
Right. They keep him around for the same reason, I imagine.
Probably so.
Yeah, because he talks about all this stuff for people who don't know David Icke. They can look and do some research on his role as well. I also want to ask you about this other thing that you talk about. This, it's I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Morgellon disease. What did you?
Yes, Morgellons disease.
Morgellons disease.
Thousands of people have that in America, worldwide. Back in 2009 when it started, DARPA was the main, guys doing that with the synthetic bacteria. It's called Agrobacterium tumefaciens. They have renamed that bacteria now to Rhizobium radiobacter, and actually Monsanto has a patent on this. They have a patent on the transformation method of Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Monsanto is huge into this GMO thing, this genetically modified biological warfare stuff. I mean, this is what I call it. And they recently purchased the Climate Corporation, and I believe that's also that they are participating in this. If they spread agrobacterium on everyone's crops, everyone has to buy Monsanto seeds in order to grow crops.
Oh, I've read about this, yes. Right. So that makes them, so it pretty much creates a monopoly on the food source.
Exactly. And then Eli Lilly makes an antibiotic for Morgellons disease. While the doctors were denying it for years, they were like, oh, it's delusional parasitosis and all this stuff. Eli Lilly makes an antibiotic for it, which is the same company that is funded by the CFR Rockefeller family.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Seeing all these connections. And tell me what the symptoms are of this disease.
There's fibers that grow out of the skin. There's red fibers, wounds, open sores. It's a very disturbing thing that people have to deal with. And the more organic that they eat, the more organic foods, the worse it's going to be for them. The more foods that they eat with pesticides in it, which is what rids the person of Morgellons. Pesticides kill it. The Roundup spray made by Monsanto will kill the Morgellons. So if people eat the GMO food, they're pretty much okay, as far as the Morgellons disease goes. If they eat organic, they'll notice a little bit of skin breakouts, sometimes open wounds, open sores, bleeding sores. It's very disturbing what they do to people with that.
Wow, so you're in a catch-22, really.
Definitely. That's the best word for it.
I mean, if you eat organic, which a lot of us try to do, right, this is a good way to discourage it. But then you turn to the other source of food, which is pesticide-filled, etc. Now we have another problem.
Exactly.
And why does it not surprise me that there's a pharmaceutical company involved here? Does that surprise anyone out there? It's kind of ironic, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so now, again, I have to go back to this. What can people do about this? Besides know about it, which scares the heck out of people.
Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely not into fear-mongering, but I am into spreading the truth, which I believe is the opposite. If we had a federal organization go in there and arrest these guys and try them in court, they would be convicted. There's a Google group called GEO, G-E-O. You can research online. It's got all the people that are involved with this inside of that group. They go to meetings within NASA Ames facility. The CIA is also met over this. And by the way, their planes are from Pinal Air Park. Pinal Air Park was used back in Vietnam as the CIA headquarters. It was like a front for the planes anyway. Pinal Air Park planes, Evergreen International Aviation started doing this in 2009 with a weather modification contract. They declared bankruptcy in 2011, which is when they started, the CIA admitted to starting the geoengineering, for them anyway.
Okay, so this group, let's go back, this GEO at Google group, these are the people doing this, or these are the people fighting it, or what?
These are the people researching geoengineering. And I don't have any proof that they have done it, but they research ways to erupt volcanoes, to spray sulfur dioxide, and everything that they research in that group could be classified as chemical terrorism. They openly admit to plotting chemical terror attacks on the United States, and no one is arrested because people think that they're trying to save the place from global warming. And it is the hugest lie that anyone could ever come up with. Hitler had the same, mentality about him. The big lie is what he called it, something so insane that nobody would believe it. Nobody would do anything about it because it just didn't sound right.
Right. Right. And so people don't believe it.
Exactly.
They don't believe it, and they don't really want to research it either, because I think it scares people for the most part.
Yes.
Better not to know,
You're right. Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, exactly. What I don't know doesn't hurt me, right?
Yes.
Right. So now there's got to be some enlightened, higher consciousness people in the government, or, outside of you and David Icke and those that might be, in the periphery around you. There's got to be somebody with some power here that has some higher level consciousness to fight or to do something about this. Aren't there? Or is money money bought and sold everyone?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that there are people who care about it, but with the promise of protection and the risk of their own life and their family's life at speaking out against it, a lot of people won't do anything about it. And that's the problem I see within the federal government. Because I'm sure there are some good FBI agents left. I'm sure that they could at any time go and arrest these guys, put them in prison. They would get 30 years to life in prison for what they plotted to do. But at the same time, that person wouldn't fare too well afterwards.
Right. And yeah, wow. And so none of the stuff they've done to you have backed you off. So you still remain, going for the cause, right?
Definitely. I don't see any other reason, to stop if it's like... I
mean, you've gone this far.
Definitely. There's no turning back. It's like falling into a black hole when you mess with the government. It's an endless cycle.
Do you ever regret having started this, looking into this and all of that? Do you ever have second thoughts about it?
Yes, I do feel guilty about some of the stuff because the lawsuits didn't succeed in America in 2010. And in 2011, a year later, the Joplin tornado happened. It destroyed an entire town. 162 people died from that tornado. And even though I tried to stop it, it didn't stop. That's what made me feel guilty about it, because I couldn't stop it.
Right.
It made me regret even doing anything in the first place.
Yeah, I bet. And so you've seen all these, like the terrible weather that's out there right now. Isn't there a big storm moving across the country toward the east?
I'm sure that there is. I don't even look at the weather anymore, to be honest. I don't look at the weather report, because if I do, it's just going to make me mad. It's going to infuriate me to the point where I want to start calling people or something like that. And I just try to back down now and do my activism online to educate people about the geoengineering, so that someone else can maybe, step up, like you were saying, with the federal government. Because I have no badge or budget to do this with, and they do. If I had the badge and the budget, I would go do it myself.
Right. So your message is to get the word out with people, and I know that you do that in a very low cost, kind of straightforward way with the books that you publish.
Yes.
Right. Toxic Skies, by the way, for everyone who might be interested, is very readable, and it just gives basic facts and data that anybody can look up. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you're not especially afraid for your family either?
I'm divorced, actually. I'm 31 years old, divorced. I don't have any children or anything. That's another reason why I can go into this so deep. I try to stay pretty much to myself so that I don't get anyone else involved with what's going on with me.
Right. Well, that's kind of a bummer for you, and it kind of leaves you alone, though.
Well, yeah, definitely. It's a lonely life, but it's what I chose to do, and I can't. Like you said, there's no turning back.
Right. So right now, you're not working out at a regular job. You're just doing a lot of writing, I imagine, and online stuff. Okay. So for all the people that might be listening, just so that we're not ending on this fear note, what do you think is the most important thing that they need to know and understand, especially as they have children and they have jobs and they, go about their life? What would you recommend?
Like with Syria gassing their own citizens, quote unquote, with chemical terror agents, and we tried to invade them back then. We made up a new excuse, ISIS this time, to go and invade another country. Yeah. When actually our own country is doing that to us. I'd say the most important thing is to stop believing whatever they tell you about this stuff. Stop believing any government source, basically, unless they're admitting to something that they're doing. They're trying to create mass confusion. That's the problem. Mass confusion, and people fight each other. When people fight each other, they don't have to do it for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in other words, question everything.
Exactly.
Don't be so lured into believing everything you hear, I suppose, and including this show, question.
Definitely, most definitely. I don't ask anyone to believe anything that I say. All this stuff is proven. I mean, it's physics that clouds cannot form naturally. It's an admitted test that the government's geoengineering right now with chemical terror agents. There's nothing that I wouldn't encourage people to look up for their own selves and read it for themselves rather than listen to, a guy on the radio. That's definitely not what I want. I want people to know what's going on so that they can do something about it.
Right. And whatever that might lead to, whatever that means.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Now, I also read, that, just getting back here, because I just brought up a thought for me, getting back to the things that are sprayed in the sky, right? I also read somewhere that there were a series of bacteria and viruses that were being spread by that too. Is that correct?
Exactly. They have found white blood cells within the spray. They have also found, like I was mentioning earlier, the Morgellons, the Agrobacterium tumefaciens, the Rhizobium radiobacter. These dust particles will fall from the sky and make people very sick. This is also in the encyclopedia. It's called bioprecipitation. They admit to doing this. Ice nucleating bacteria are used in cloud seeding, quote unquote, from the encyclopedia on bioprecipitation.
Now, this wouldn't have to, it doesn't correlate with our flu season, does it, by chance?
They can put anything in that mix that they would like to. And flu season, I believe, is a manufactured event, just like H1N1. It can be spread through geoengineering on a global scale. Within 2 days, everyone on this planet could have a huge disease and have no idea where it came from. 8% of people would know, of course, because they know about geoengineering, but the rest of them would be left to die and wonder how it happened. It's a very dangerous program, and the only thing I could say is it should be stopped immediately before they go too far with it.
Wow. Okay, so if this is happening, do you believe that as human beings, we have the ability, or our genetics have the ability to evolve, and maybe our thinking has the ability to evolve energetically to where we can withstand a lot of this? So,
Definitely.
for example, the more, let's say, illnesses or the more high-strain bacteria there are out there in the world, our bodies will naturally, just by natural healing process or because of who we are, will build immunities and build resistances and become stronger, almost. Do you believe in that?
Absolutely. It's like a kid playing in the dirt when he's a kid and not getting sick when he's older.
Exactly.
Building up immunity to it. And what they use in this is gram-negative soil bacteria. So what they say is what doesn't kill you can only make you stronger. So hopefully, if this ends, that will be the end goal for us anyway. That we got out of it okay, unlike a lot of people.
Right. So in the same with our belief systems. If our belief systems are such that we can overcome this, or we can be, stronger in the face of it, then we will be. I believe that.
I do too.
So there is a lot of hope, and there is a lot that people can do, right, if they educate themselves.
Yes, definitely.
If they don't stay walking asleep, I say. And that
Exactly.
includes questioning everything that you're saying, Michael, right?
Definitely.
I want to include that all the time, that's what this forum is about. It's about questioning, and it's about searching for yourself and becoming independently thinking.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. And we only have about 2 minutes left now, so I want to thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Thank you, Dr.
More
Linda.
power to you in your quest for information for all of us. And you're keeping up the good fight, and those around you, I'm sure there are others who also believe as you believe and are doing something to try and get the word out there. So I want to thank you so much for being on the show. And if you have anything new that comes out, please send it by me.
Thank you. I will do that.
Okay. All right, everyone. We have just had a very interesting hour with a lot of information that you may not altogether buy, and some of you may already know, but the whole message of this is to get out there and do the research and homework for yourself. Continually question everything. Look it up. It's all out there. We now have the internet, a library at your fingertips that you can utilize. So, and then the most important thing is to get out there and live your life, because it's an adventure waiting for you. And remember to always stay curious, ask questions whenever possible of anything around you, and each day, take a moment to just step outside your bubble. Thanks for being with us, and don't forget, on demand for all the shows. We'll see you next week.
Thank you again for tuning into the Shrink Wrap Forum. Be sure to dive into the stream again and join Dr. Linda Yniguez next Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific, on the Voice America Variety Channel. Until then, have a great week.